Hi, this is Rob from Alumni Direct, and I'm one of the founders of the company. And we've created an online community to help both upperclassmen as well as alumni across the board, from recent graduates all the way across to the mature alumni that have been out there for many years, like myself. And we try to introduce different topics to help people out. We've had a couple webinars on technology. We've had someone investing. And tonight's an interesting topic. We have recent graduates on. They graduated within the last year. And we want to find out more from them of how they're kind of handling the current situation. We're all in a weird situation with the pandemic and COVID. Maybe talk a little bit about that. And then also just find out about their interactions and jobs and networking. So I've got some questions that I'm going to kind of go around this panel. We've got Katie and Deb from the University of Florida Gators. We have Caleb, who went to Iowa State. We have Kay and John, who went to William and Mary. And I'm a University of Delaware graduate, and my fellow marketing person with us as well, Suki, is also a fellow Blue Hen. So I'm going to start off, and I guess, looking at this unfortunate situation that we're all in, and everybody's interacting different with COVID. But I guess the question is, how has it affected you as regards to the job market, and whether it's affected you with the current job where you're at or trying to find jobs? And I'll kind of go around, and feel free to jump in and answer that question. You want to start, Kay?
Sure. So I graduated about 2 months ago, and it's been really a struggle just trying to find anything. Like, you'll keep sending applications out and then not hearing anything. And I think that's pretty typical just in general when you're first starting out. But what isn't typical is companies like posting jobs that they don't actually plan to fill anytime soon, and then just kind of stacking up the applications or like the resumes to try and fill that job after COVID ends, which isn't something I really realized that they were doing. So it's really hard to find a job when like a vast number of the jobs that you're looking at don't actually exist yet, and companies are experiencing hiring freezes at the same time.
Anybody else experiencing that, where you're trying to find that first job, or you had a job and you might have been furloughed?
Luckily, Deb and I haven't found ourselves in that position, but I do have some friends. I would say that the recent graduates, because we graduated a year ago, I feel really lucky about that timing, and I really feel for the recent graduates. I feel like that is the group that's having more of the issues as far as my friend group that I've known. I do know a couple people our year that actually have gotten lucky and moved to new cities during this time, but I would say that that's pretty uncommon. But we both feel lucky to be at our jobs, but we both work for smaller organizations, so it's not corporate America by any means.
Gotcha. How about you, Caleb? Anything on your end?
Yeah, so I'm in a different position because I graduated last May, and I'll start attending medical school this fall. Actually, in a week from today, I'll start. So I kind of had a year gap in between starting medical school, a gap here in between. And so for me, I found a job teaching in a private school in Florida. So that I was able to get into that job, but it was interesting when COVID hit a lot of those, especially in the private school, they weren't sure where they were going to get the funding from the state to cover those jobs. And so everyone there was kind of scrambling, and just hearing all the parents at that school when their income is threatened, therefore the private school, the whole structure is also threatened. And so I've seen some of that firsthand, some of the difficulty of, the stress that COVID's putting on people.
I would also add in, I'm in Virginia, and we're in weird limbo for education also. I'm an instructor assistant in Henrico County, and I am uncertain of whether I'm going to have a job next fall, because we're in a situation where my job might not be required if it goes fully virtual. So I'm in a weird limbo, and it's kind of a uncertain time, obviously for everyone, but like, especially in education. So I would just to piggyback on that point.
Okay. How about as far as like working in the office, or any of you, are you working in your office or you working virtual? How's that work? How's that going?
Again, I think it has, in all of my friends talking about this, it's really depended on the size of the business. The firm I'm at is really small, so I worked from home for about 3 weeks, and then my boss and I decided that we were going to come back in and take the precautions necessary. Do you want to touch on that at all? Because you have a bigger.
I work at a nonprofit in Gainesville, and we have like about 170 employees. And so right now we're able to come into the office, but it's kind of up to your discretion. We're encouraged to work from home, but if you want to come into the office, since we're a child welfare organization, a lot of people do have to, like our caseworkers, we have to sign in every single time we enter and leave, even if we are just going to our cars to grab something, because of contact tracing. So the past 2 weeks I've had to be in the office for one of our back to school drives, and there's about like 20 people there, and people come in like once a week or twice a week. But our office is actually entering into phase 1 of they like set it up in phases for re-entering. And so phase 1 was supposed to be like a couple months ago, but I think it's supposed to happen this month. But they honestly might push it back. But our office actually, because people are enjoying working from home so much, they've decided that only 75% of the workforce, or like our office isn't going to 100% go back to working in the office like full time. So people are going to be working from home for the rest of like forever, until, because they've noticed like working from home has been beneficial.
Yeah, it seems like that's the case in a lot of the offices, even down here in South Florida. I think they're realizing that people can work remote, which kind of changes things, the way you interact with people. And I think one thing that we've talked about, and what we're trying to do with Alumni Direct, is to really help people to network and connect. So kind of the next question is, looking at, since you've graduated, what type of interaction have you had from your university in relation to the university or the Alumni Association?
I don't think I've had any, because I think we have to pay to be a part of the Alumni Association, and I didn't pay for that. So none. I've had someone call me and ask me to update my contact info and to pay for something.
What does it cost to, do they have different levels of membership?
I'm not 100% sure, but do you know?
I actually don't know. That's something I could look into for sure. But again, I got the call. It was kind of a funny joke among friends, because we all got the call around the same week period. It was the call to ask for money, and a lot of us were laughing because we're kind of in a position where we're just starting our careers or finding out what path we want to take. So I don't know a single
Oh, we lost.
Like I said, we're having some issues. But anyway, so we yeah, I don't know a single person.
So it's all about the asking. Yeah. How about
Yeah.
what have you seen, Caleb? Same kind of thing?
Yeah, so kind of the same thing for my university. The Alumni Association, it's a pretty big deal, I would say. It's a pretty big network, and their whole like advertising push is, it's called Cyclones Everywhere. And so their like brand is saying, hey, wherever you go, wherever you end up, there's actually cyclones there. And so they like try and say, hey, you can get connected with them. Anywhere you'll go, you'll probably find Iowa State people. But that same phone call they're talking about where their first interaction with you post-graduation is, hey, you should start giving us money now. And it's just kind of like the question is like, well, what do I get out of it? You know, because there's no real transaction. It's more of like, hey, we need your money to give to the next generation. And you're like, wait a sec, I've worked 2 months at my job, and most of my peers are probably, I graduated without debt, but several of them are probably still paying the debt that they already have incurred at that institution. And so it's kind of a pretty big question mark. It's like, wait, you already want my money and you've given me what? And so, yeah.
So you're looking for value. It's like, you've paid a lot of money for your education. So if you're asking to give for the alumni to give, like, what's the value that you're getting back because you already paid for your education? How about you, Kay? What do you say on that topic?
Yeah, I've definitely had about the same experience. We have like a job posting board, which is like only like the only service that they give recent grads, but it's pretty dead. Like no one really posts on it whatsoever, and like a lot of the posts are outdated, and then like you click them and they don't actually lead anywhere. So I don't think we have anything that you have to pay for, but like they do just ask us for money constantly, or like really play up these services that don't actually work.
Right, and that's something honestly will probably go on. I mean, I was the president of my alumni club, and the schools do need, or the alumni associations do need to raise money, but it's also they need to give value back, and that's important. Sure. Across the, when you get older, there's different ways that that people give back. How about you, John? Same experience, or what's your experience with that?
Personally, when I graduated, I was really overwhelmed and didn't really know exactly what direction I would go in. And so as a result, like I wasn't like in a position to be like, oh, can you help me find a job? But I have heard similar stories from Kay that it's a situation where you think when you're in school that it's gonna like pay off to be connected to that network alumni, but it can be a dead end for a lot of people.
What's interesting is a lot of people now there's talk about, saying, is a college degree worth it? And I mean, that's kind of the topic that people are saying, like, you've gone to school, you've done all this, and then unfortunately you see the current situation. I mean, maybe give me some feedback on that. Like, if you had to do it all over again, I mean, I was agreeing with it too, but what would you think of that?
I think.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, John.
I personally, I don't know. I feel like I'm happy I did it, and I would do it again, just because I felt like from a personal development that I grew a lot from going to college. But from a career standpoint, I can see like the arguments for why you could save money and go and pursue other things. I feel like it depends on the individual. I feel like trade school is very undervalued. Like I think that there's like a stigma around trade school, and I think that shouldn't be the case. You can make a lot of money becoming a mechanic or plumber. So personally, like for me, I'm happy with my decision, but I think that I can see the argument for why you would not want to go to college and pursue something else.
Katie, you were going to say something on that?
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback off of that, I think sometimes just viewing college differently as the place where you get to explore, because I don't think a lot of people get out of high school knowing what they want to do. And if they do, not to the degree, like they might know they want to be a doctor, be in business, but college is where you really get to fine tune that. And then of course, like you're going to make changes throughout your entire life. But I think the argument that it's not worth it is the other side of that. The other side of the coin is that you would run into a lot of roadblocks without that degree. So even if it is viewed as just a formality. It still just innately holds value in that regard. I was thinking of one other thing as John was talking. If anyone else has anything to add, I'll cut in if I think of it.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who left college halfway through and tried to find jobs on their own. And they found it was basically impossible to. Like, one of them ended up working at Walmart, and the other one ended up joining like the army just because they needed to be able to pay the bills. So I think we definitely live in a world where it's really hard to find a good job if you haven't gone to college or gone to trade school or something else. But like, I think that colleges are also a lot more expensive than they're actually worth. Like, especially if once you graduate, you don't really get any help from them. They just kind of keep asking you for more favors and more money.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's nuance in both sides of that argument, right? Of course, we know that like stats say your earning potential is much higher if you have a college degree. Like that's true. But the reality is it is not for everyone. And I think it's kind of a spoon-fed like pill. We think, oh, okay, like I'll take this pill. Once I take this pill, I'll have the high-paying, upper middle-class job, like direct cause and effect. But the reality is that's not true. Because when you get into the workplace, they care about skills and aptitude to complete the actual job. They don't care about as much about having a certain college degree. And I think that's why you see the majors, the engineering majors, those skill-based intensive majors having a higher success rate of getting a job after college, because they spent their time training those skills that directly transfer to the workplace, whereas a lot of other majors don't have that direct transfer. And so the question shouldn't be, is it a college degree or not? It should be, do I have the skills necessary to complete the job, or to do the job that I want to do? Sometimes a trade school is the best place to get that training. Sometimes it's not. And so like for me, I'm going to medical school this fall, but last couple of summers I worked in real estate. I did maintenance. I did leasing. I worked for a real estate company, and I majored in biology and kinesiology. And so it was something that was totally outside of my major, but I was still able to get experience in that field. And hopefully I hope to someday kind of do medicine and real estate both. I think that's just a little picture of, okay, if I spend my time trying to build these skills up now, it can pay dividends later on in the long run.
Yeah, no, that's great. Now, I think one thing that I'll say from my experience, I'm pretty passionate about networking and connecting with people. And I think the college experience, putting aside, what you're learning, it's that whole shaping. And I think, seemed like Katie, you were kind of alluding to that, is it's that experience, whether it be, being involved in sports or just friends and doing like sororities or fraternities. And that has a big impact on your future. So when people come out, and it might not be at your age coming out, but networking is really important, and networking means a lot of things. But one thing that we've tried to create with Alumni Direct is kind of helping people and paying it forward, becoming that big brother, big sister. Kind of some of the different like Ivy League schools do a really good job. Is that we want to help to facilitate these online communities specific to your universities and help people to do that networking. So when you're just getting out, and whether it's like looking for a job, or whether it's, you want to start a business, advertising, whatever it might be, that's what we want to do. So what I want to kind of get a feel from is just, based on your college experience, tell me a little more like what you've done in the world of like networking. Like, are you still connected to, some of the folks that you met in school, fellow alumni? What are you doing kind of going forward? And I just want to go around and find that out from each one of you.
I'd say personally, my greatest networking tool is absolutely my church that I was involved in. That was where I met the most people and had the deeper, more intimate relationships that you would have a next step career altering relationship with. And so honestly, that was the avenue that I had the most networking opportunity in and through. And that's the one that I'm still most closely connected to. So not as much on the university side for me, but it was just kind of a different entity that I was tied to pretty closely.
Right, but you see, obviously, you're seeing the value connecting with people and how people can help you out.
Absolutely.
How about you, Deb and Katie?
Well, I would say some of the things I did outside of UF, like I interned with this nonprofit, and there I met this girl who connected to me to the job that I have now. So things that I was involved in or volunteered with, I do have like a good relationship with one of my professors, but just one of them. So,
yeah. I was in the business school at the University of Florida, and I think that there was a heightened, would you agree with that? A heightened focus on networking. So back to one of the first questions you had asked, Rob, I think that I maybe not just in general have had a great experience with UF alum, like as a formal group, but the smaller groups that I was a part of, I definitely have kept in touch with, and they've even done events. I was part of a group called Florida Leadership Academy. There's a lot of acronyms at UF, but that is a business school specific group. I would say that that's who I'm most connected with still. Also, I know that my boss hired me partly because I'm a Gator and he's a Gator. And we're both local in Gainesville, and I definitely think he would have chosen a Gator over a non-Gator. And so now I have a whole new network of a different generation of Gators through him. So that's been a little bit of my experience.
How about you, Kay?
Yeah, pretty similar. Like, the William & Mary is a smaller school, so they really emphasize like professors getting to know their students. And I've reached out to a few professors who actually, some of them were married to people who like own their own companies and stuff like that. So that's actually been pretty helpful in looking for jobs and getting advice and resume help and things like that. It was kind of difficult for me because I was an English and history double major, and people in those fields tend to just focus on like academia and nothing else. And so since I'm more interested in communications and marketing, it's been kind of hard to find stuff specifically in my field because I didn't really diversify enough when I was in college.
You're up, John.
So for me, networking, it was mainly through just talking to a few friends that I went to school with, but nothing that was like official or like that's the wrong word, but like it wasn't something where I would contact like professors or someone that was part of the establishment of William & Mary. That's what I would say in terms of like the networking involved. Usually it was kind of more at like a personal level, like family, friends. That was kind of the nature of networking.
Okay, so like if you looking at it now and looking since you've all been out of school now, how like what kind of help can you get or would you like to get from whether it be the university or any other type of organization to help you kind of further where you're at now and help grow your careers?
Well, one thing I really like about Alumni Direct is that the plan is to connect you directly with alumni, so you don't really have to go and try and find them and like send an awkward LinkedIn message and hope that they reply. It's a lot more personal, so you feel like you're actually talking to people rather than sending these really informal emails and sometimes never hearing back.
How about you, Caleb?
Sorry, I think it totally depends on the field that you're going into, like for sure. I mean, for me, it'd be a little different as I plan to go to medical school. So it could be something that I could more so use this in my undergrad years, trying to connect with doctors to get shadowing experience. I think that'd be a more valuable time to have access to the services that Alumni Direct could provide, at least in the medical field. But if I were to do something like real estate, it would just be really nice to have an onboarding, say, hey, this is where it might be a low level job, but this is the place to go where they want to invest in someone who is willing to move up and do the work. And just that foot in the door is what everyone needs. Hard part is that some people don't really take advantage of it once they do get their foot in the door. And so it's a kind of a tough situation to manage sometimes, but I think that would be the number one thing that people would desire.
How about the Gator crew up there?
The first thing I thought of when you asked the question is, I don't know the exact name of it, but UF does have a program where you can enter a contest and basically have a business idea, whatever it is, and they will invest, and you have to go through the process and the steps. I think that is one thing that I haven't taken advantage of yet, but plan to one day. And that's something that is exciting to me, and like you said, like value coming back. And then I think it would be amazing to then turn that and give that value back by getting Gator interns and the like. So that's just one smaller idea that I thought of as you were asking that.
Yeah, I think it would be really helpful just because my degree is in public relations. So the communications field is all about who you know. And I've seen a lot of my friends get jobs from people who they met through college or their professors knowing people. So I think it would be really helpful for definitely the communications field, journalism. I feel like not the STEM majors would be extremely helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I would piggyback off of Caleb's point about shadowing, and also the points mentioned earlier about like having the connections to an established network to get internships. I think that's a really big deal, because I think that like I wish I had taken more advantage of internship opportunities, but like what we kind of know, but half of that is also just who do you know, like how can you get to that kind of level of like personal contact to be able to be like, oh, I know so and so, and I would love to work as an intern at this company, and so I feel like that would have been super helpful. And that's something that I would like assistance for when I'm networking.
Yeah, and that's, I think, Katie, you hit it with from a job perspective, is that I think I always tell people that if I'm interviewing 5 different people, they all have the same credentials, but one went to University of Delaware, I'm going to hire them. And I think just like your boss, and a lot of people would think that way, is just you have that affinity to your university alumni. And it's not only obviously about jobs. I mean, there's a lot of other things in life. I mean, it's kind of like anytime you go to a good restaurant, you're going to recommend it to somebody. So there's a lot of different things that networking means. And as you, even like you said, Katie, with the entrepreneurial program that the Gators have, as you start establishing your businesses, you want, obviously you want to grow your businesses. And one way to help is to people that are kind of like-minded. So, I mean, if you have the fellow alumni that might look at a business and say, okay, well, I'm not necessarily sure if I'm going to buy the product or service, but because you're a fellow alumni, would definitely take advantage of it. And we've had a lot of stories of, one of my favorite stories of just, connecting alumni, down here in South Florida, where we're far away from University of Delaware. We had a group of guys that were all, business minded and looking to help each other out. And we did some business networkings and breakfasts and getting people together, talking about how we could help each other out. But it always resonates. There was one guy who he was a hedge fund guy, and so he moves down to Florida and he meets a fellow Delaware alumni, and through those two, he gets introduced to a third alumni. That third alumni's wife was starting a business. She had invented a product, and this guy ended up investing in the business because he'd met the one alumni to the other alumni to the alumni's wife. So it's also about not only helping each other out, but helping out families. And that's, you know, a lot of what we're hoping to do with Alumni Direct is to do that, is to not only facilitate jobs, but to give value back to alumni, give them a place where they can do these different things. So there is a lot of value to networking, you know, aside from the jobs as well, which is, you know, seems like you see it. And I definitely encourage it to go out there. And, you know, some people don't necessarily know how to do that. And we want to help them with that, because I know it's, you know, back to the fraternity sorority, you might have that built-in group, or some of the, you know, the church networking group and all that, but to expand upon and get into you meeting other alumni, if you have a place like Kay said where you could, you know, work together, kind of talk, it definitely helps out. So I'm trying to see if you know, what other, I guess, do you have any questions for me, or like what things would you like to see in your alumni experience that might make it better now and then into the future?
I think events are always something that I'm more interested in. You have been mentioning sorority and fraternities. I would say I'm more connected to my sorority alumni group than UF in general, and that's solely because they put on events, and they're fun to go to. You go with your old friends and you make new friends, and so that's something that I think as a whole, the University of Florida could do better. I think that could go over really well. Maybe I'm just unaware of them, but if they do have them, they're not advertised very well. So, because it's one thing to connect online, and with COVID, that's really all we're doing, and it's very helpful in a lot of situations, but it's just not the same for me, at least.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think events are awesome because having a name and a face, like, really builds it builds that rapport to like actually land a job and or get that internship, as opposed to just a message from an email or direct message. I completely agree with that. An event would be great.
Yeah, I think with the events, that's really important. I mean, I know that we used to have a lot of events, you know, social events, maybe 4 or 5 events, but I think when you're talking in the business world per se, you know, having those networking events where you get together and meet other people and shake their hands or learn about different topics. And you know, the one thing that I think is important is, you know, we're trying to do this as well, just having the ability to create groups, you know, within these alumni communities, and to have the events. And I guess that kind of, you know, the thought came across, you know, since we are in this whole time, like I said, we can't get together with people. What are your impressions of some of these virtual events, and have you done any where, you know, other than webinars, like to actually have an event, a get together, like you were saying, Katie? I mean, to have, you know, whether everybody raises a glass and has a cocktail and talks about what's going on. I mean, just I want to get your impression going around, like what you think of these virtual events.
I know that my medical school had a few of those this summer to kind of get people plugged in, but honestly, I did not participate, and it's just not me. You know, it's for some people, especially people who are coming from out of state. I'm lucky in that I know there's 160 students in my class. I know probably 10 or 12 of them going into it already, just because I'm from Iowa. I either went to undergrad with them or high school with them, and so I kind of already have a network. But especially for students who come from the California, Florida, New York, wherever they come from, landing in Iowa City, it's a pretty remote place, and they probably don't know anyone. And so that would be a pretty crucial touch point for a lot of those students. It's just not necessarily a crucial one for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Zoom meetings can be kind of intimidating for a lot of people. So I haven't really done anything like that wasn't just for jobs or just checking in with friends. Like, I think it's I think it's going to be really hard to get to know people virtually unless you already have some kind of connection to them.
Anything on your end, Katie?
I just think the obvious. It's not the same. It's good when it's the only thing that can happen, but I would agree that unless you, like, I wouldn't jump on a happy hour with a bunch of people I didn't know if it was via Zoom. I would have to have some connection previously. So that's been my take on all of this. I think a lot of people probably feel very sick of Zoom, but when it's all you've got, it's not a bad thing. It's just
Right. Yeah. I mean, hopefully it's some, we'll get through this and
yeah.
we'll get back to just be able to interact in person. But yeah, I think it definitely holds its place to have these. And the one thing, and I've had some conversation with Kay, is just kind of, I would say my advice too is just, feel free to ask questions of people and older alumni. Don't be intimidated by it, because most, like I know in my case, I mean, you get to a certain point where you just want to give it back and pay it forward. And so it's important that no question is a stupid question, because there might be things that people can reach out and help you out with. And I would just say don't be afraid to ask those questions and have the conversations. And even like you're saying, Kay, now, I mean, I guess the Zooms could be a little intimidating, but I guess think of it more as a game, or just something that just a party and just getting to know people, because unfortunately that's how we have to do it right now. I mean, it's a little better, I guess, than a phone call. I mean, a phone call, you're talking to one person, and I mean, you could have that interaction, but at least with this, I mean, you can kind of see people's reactions and all that. So
Yeah. And one thing that I just thought of is, you were mentioning how you said you have alumni who kind of really want to give back and want to pour back into their students. It kind of seems like there would be two different types of people on the alumni side. They're the ones who just want an easy end to hire people, right? Hire qualified people, or the ones who actually have like a little bigger picture of, I want to reinvest in the institution that invested in me. And so there's two kinds of people on the alumni side. There's probably two kinds of students also, right? The ones who just think, man, I just want the job. That's all I want. And then there's also students who, like, I actually want a mentor type relationship where they could pour into me, even if it's during my second, third, fourth year of undergrad. And so maybe that's something to consider, of like, okay, if you actually, maybe you could have part of your, try to connect the ones who have a more long-term vision for giving back with the ones who have a long-term desire for being poured into, and then have another service where it's just kind of the onboard, where it's like, hey, we're literally just getting our foot in the door here. And I don't know if that's making any sense or not, but I think
it does.
Consider. And it might be too much to balance, too many different considerations to kind of hold in both hands. But I think that distinction is important, because if you're trying to help someone who wants to give back long term, and all they end up getting is kids who just want jobs, they're going to be kind of disheartened. And vice versa, if someone just wants to be like, hey, I have a job, I want to fill it with this person, and then they have students who are like, trying to suck their time and all that, you're probably going to have just disappointment in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think people want to give back, and they they want to mentor, and it all depends on where you're at in your journey. I mean, some people, as you become an older alumni like myself, you start thinking about those things. Maybe, when you're out of school for 5 years out, 7 years out, maybe it's not as important. But I think when you do find the right people, definitely grab on and take their advice and listen to them. There's a lot of good people out there that are willing to mentor and help people in their journey along the way.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any thoughts of things that are important to you as going out into the alumni world here, and just in general?
I would piggyback off that point of, I remember being intimidated reaching out to alumni and people that that I didn't really even know, but I just knew someone who knew that person, and I remember thinking that like this could be a very awkward phone call, and also this person might not want to talk to me. But I would say, just to confirm some of the things that Kayla was talking about, that, and also what you were talking about, Jeff, is that like they really did want to help. They actually genuinely wanted to provide information, and they wished the best of luck to me. And so I completely agree with what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, it's important. The one thing too is just it's not necessarily who the person is, but who they know. So you might connect with an alumni that might have, in the future, if you're, you're practicing, you're a doctor, and you're looking for new patients. It might be that some fellow alumni reaches out to you, and maybe on behalf of somebody else. So you just never know where that's going to come into play. So and if you don't have any other thoughts, what I would like to do is kind of wrap up this question and answer session. Then I'm just gonna, I'll show you Alumni Direct and kind of talk about some of the other things that we talk about. So Suki, if you could just pull up the site. So if it's one thing, the key thing that we're trying to do is to develop these community centers. So we actually have one for the Gators. So I know Katie signed up. So Deb, you're in. What we're trying to do too right now is for people that are just graduating, even college seniors, what we're doing is we want to get people out there, and we're going to give them like a year membership, like the paid membership, which the paid membership is only $4.99 a month. But, we're doing that for free. And we're also just trying to just drive people to the site to interact with it and just see what they think. And, there's, the one thing from like a benefit standpoint, you're going to find a lot of these university alumni association, what they do is they'll have like maybe a perks program like we have, where it's kind of like a high-end entertainment club. But when you go on there, and this is free to anybody, I mean, there's a free membership to Alumni Direct as well. The difference is, getting into that community center, but there's all kinds of perks that you can get. So it's like it could be restaurants or travel, a lot of things that aren't going now, electronics. They have over 300,000 different offers on there. So this is something that we just want to give back. So, as people come on this, they can use that. We're also trying to get strategic partners in different areas. So like we've got one that does refinancing of student loans. We're looking for a health club and insurance. So just things that people might need. I'm sure you're all familiar with like AARP for senior citizens, and also looking at like the USAA, for veterans. So we want to do the same thing. I mean, we don't want to have that stigma of not giving back. I mean, we understand the value that you spent all that money during your college years, and now you're out in the real world, and we want the alumni to get value. And that's what we're trying to do. Like we just felt that, like you feel now, probably when we graduated along the way, that we wanted a little bit more, and so we're trying to give that back to people now. Just whether it's jobs. One thing we talked about, internships. Our goal is to create internships with all the different university community centers. People that we're involved with, whether it's the Gators or Delaware or Iowa State, William and Mary, it could be Florida State, USC. We want to try to get maybe an intern or two in each university that would, learn about how to, build this business. I mean, we're at a point where we're just starting out, so we want to have, people with the social media backgrounds and, kind of a chance to help them with the different marketing things, what they can do. So those are just some of the things we're doing. But if you're in the on the community centers, can you, Suki, can you go into the community center real quick? If you click on that, click on the communities. Are you logged here? Let me let me go ahead and I'll share my screen. Just hold on a second here. I just want to show you this real quick so you get a general idea. Suki, you gotta enable me again, because it's not allowing me to do it. Okay, let's try this. Just give me a second here. little slow internet here. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Do you see the screen with the alumni
Yeah.
direct on it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to show you what the community center looks like. So you'll see like the University of Delaware Community Center. So these are all different community centers that we have. So these are people that are current members that, as they signed up, we created these community centers. So like with Delaware, for example, it's got a little blurb. The one thing we're looking for too is that as we open up these community centers, is to have, whether it be young alumni or somebody that wants to kind of post content of like what's going on in the university. So you can see here, these are all just members. So these are different members of the site, and you can see, I mean, they haven't put their pictures on there. So as we start developing this now and getting people to come in, hopefully they'll start filling it out. But you'll see the different things that are going on. If you go into, you can do discussions, you can post photos. So it's a lot of, we kind of talk it as, Facebook meets LinkedIn. You have the ability here to post a job. So as an alumni, you could either post a job, or as an alumni, you can look for a job or an internship. We talked before about events. You could post events. So we're trying to have, let's say in a market where, once again, when you can get out in the real world, you want to have a happy hour. So it's, the university usually has alumni events, but it's such a big country. So there's going to be people, especially once you get far away from, the university's location, like in my case, being from Delaware and being that far away, to have events where I can go in and have a business networking event or whatever kind of event it is. If you go into activity here, you'll see, there's an area for blogs, there's updates. You can go into, within the community center itself, you could just do, it's my activity, but you see what other people are doing. You have the ability to message people back and forth. We are at some point going to have, some type of video area where, the groups can do it. You could set up groups, which is nice. So, Caleb, in your, situation, like if you wanted to set up a group of, fellow, med students, that are like off from like Iowa State, you could do something like that. Or, like Katie, if you were doing, you could do like your sorority, and just, as within these community centers, you can create your own groups as well. So within these groups, which is nice. I mean, you can have an accounting group, you have a teacher group, sorority group, whatever you might want to do. So we're really trying to facilitate that, that interaction, and more specific to alumni. So the one thing, you kind of alluded to before, you go into LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is a great site, and you can go on and you can find other fellow alumni, but then you're messaging them, kind of handing a business card. You're not necessarily having that interaction. We want to create that place where people want to come here because they are alumni and they want to interact within that alumni community. If I'll show you real quick on that, I was talking about the perks. We're trying to add different strategic partners of Alumni Direct with this perk section here. And this is something that other universities do as well, but you can go ahead and you can look at the top different categories. I mean, it's like an Amazon or whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's different areas here that people can go to look for things. And then as alumni have businesses that they want to advertise them, they have the ability to advertise here too as well. So the one thing that's nice is it's specific to where you're at, so I can view the nearby offers, and it will come on, and you can put the distance where you're at. So it's a pretty cool site. You're gonna see it's gonna start loading just different things. Obviously, unfortunate things like Regal that aren't open now, but it's going to pull up all things in your area. So it's just the ability to get discounts like an entertainment club. And what we're going to try to do as we continue to grow is add more value and more valuable partners that give, help give back to, to alumni.